I never imagined that I would fall victim to a horse and buggy hit and run in rural Egypt. But I also never expected to climb Mount Sinai, to interview refugees in Shusha camp along the Tunisian-Libyan border, or to report on Tunisia's first democratic elections from inside the electoral body's press center. Studying Arabic has opened an abundance of doors for me, doors that I never thought existed in the first place. It has taught me many life lessons, and it has helped me to grow as a person as well. For anyone considering Arabic, my advice is to get to the Middle East however possible. My love for the language really blossomed when I went to Alexandria, Egypt for the first time on a critical language scholarship from the State Department. Alex was amazing. I tried lots of new foods, I learned traditional dances, and I even had a Passover Seder in the land from the Passover story. Just walking down the streets every day was an adventure. I loved the experience so much that I returned to Alexandria for my semester abroad through Middlebury School there. Living in the dorms with Egyptian roommates taught me more about Egyptian culture than I could have ever learned from textbooks, and I made some lifelong friends. I never ran out of places to explore in Cairo, and now I can check off witnessing both sunrise and sunset on Mount Sinai on my bucket list. I think that my favorite experiences were the random everyday adventures that I went on, like haggling over camels with old Arab men in the camel market, or getting into an intense hit-and-run car chase with a horse and buggy on our way back. Seeing a real oasis in the desert was pretty cool, and so was driving at high speeds up and down the sand dunes of the Sahara. Egypt's location makes it easy to visit nearby Arabic-speaking countries like Jordan. For history buffs and Indiana Jones fans, there's the ancient city of Petra, where there's lots to climb. Egypt wasn't the end of the Middle East for me. After graduating with a double major in Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies, I received the Critical Language Scholarship again, this time for Tunisia. Traveling the country was incredible, but even more amazing was living there in the months after Tunisia's revolution in 2011. After my language scholarship ended, I couldn't bear to leave, so I decided to stay in the country and to look for work. I found a job as a writer and editor for one of the country's new media sources, an online site called Tunisia Live. Working for Tunisia Live allowed me to use the Arabic that I had spent so long studying in a classroom to interview human rights activists, politicians, and ordinary citizens living through this historical time in Tunisia. I went to both peaceful and violent protests, as well as candlelit vigils for neighboring revolutions. Traveling from the birthplace of the revolution, Sidi Bouzid, to refugee camps along the borders with Libya gave me an in-depth look into the changes going on in the country, experiences that will undoubtedly serve me in my future career, and memories that I will never forget. Being in Tunisia for major regional events, such as when the Gaddafi regime finally fell, was also incredible. But I think that one of the most exciting things that I had the opportunity to report on was Tunisia's first democratic elections on October 23, 2011. Interviewing politicians and going to political rallies during the run-up to the elections gave me a heightened insight into the politics of the country, and it made me more interested in democracy building. Election day itself was one of the most amazing things that I've experienced in my life. Witnessing the long lines that stretch all the way across the street was heartening for me, as I saw these Tunisians so enthusiastic about finally expressing their right to vote in free and fair elections. I even got to interview head of a Nahda party, Rasha Ghannouchi, as he waited in line to vote. Politics, of course, don't end at the ballot box. Reporting on the results of the elections as they streamed into the electoral body was another good use of my Arabic skills, as was reporting on the drafting of the country's new constitution after the Constituent Assembly began to take action. None of these experiences would have been available to me had I not decided to pursue foreign language study, and Arabic in particular. I would highly encourage you to consider where Arabic could take you. And remember, you never know who you will run into in the Middle East.